Okay, if we can start with some thoughts about why 24 by 7 IT defense seems to have shifted from being a nice to have to an essential requirement. And I'm thinking in particular, even for smaller organizations who have limited resources.
Okay, thanks, Philip, for this opportunity. I'm Nirav Shah. I am the founder and director of technical excellence here at Infrassist Technologies Private Limited. We are a white label service provider working with the MSPs across the globe. Apart from providing tech support to these guys, we also help them scale up and structure. Now, because we work 24 cross 7, because we cater to MSPs right from New Zealand all the way up to Canada, there is one recent requirement that we have seen from all these MSPs, and these MSPs pretty much do their business in the SMB space. So they cater to business in the SMB space. So there's one requirement that we have seen lately from most of them is 24 cross 7 coverage, right? And that is something that we have helped to fill in that gap, right? And during the interview, I'll basically let you know more information on why these MSPs now have started requesting for 24 cross 7 coverage for businesses in the SMB space.
Okay, so specifically, I guess it'd be good to understand what is, I think, as it's called, the 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. problem, or I guess out of hours problem, why it's becoming such a critical issue. So, what give us some idea of what happens during those out of hours periods, I guess. So, yeah, what's going on?
Okay. So what happened, the trend that we saw post-COVID is most employees started working from home. Most companies adopted using SaaS-based applications. They started using BYOD devices. Now that is how they call it, right? So prior to post-COVID, the change in shift was that employees are not now working in a controlled environment. They are working from everywhere else. So as a company, even if it's a big company or a small company, the problem was that they had lesser control over data and devices now, right? Because of the flexibility in hours, the employees are no longer working from 9 to 5. They pretty much could be working from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. So what this essentially means for a business, one, I need more control over data and devices. Second, I want to make sure that my servers, my applications are up and running. So even if an employee works late in the night, he can still work quite easily. Even if you look at what Microsoft has done is earlier they used to provide so many solutions that used to cater to the SME segment. But post the cloud adoption, as an SMB, I can also start leveraging features which an SME used to leverage before, right? And most SMB businesses they have started adopting these. So if I want more control over my device and data, this and if I want to keep it secure, they started implementing more cyber security related products, and that is why you implement that, you get in touch with an MSP or you do it yourself, right? You implement that. But if there is an alert that comes in at 4 a.m. in the morning, there's no one monitoring it, right? If a server of mine goes down in the middle of the night when my employees start working, the system is not running. So that's the reason I feel that, this is no longer a 9 to 5 thing. Things have changed now, and that's why you essentially need something that gets monitored 24 cross 7.
Okay, and traditionally, alongside this, I mean, many SMBs would have assumed that they're just not the targets of cyber threats. They've got bigger targets. But just your thoughts as to how accurate is that perception in today's threat landscape? Is that no longer the case? Just what are you seeing?
Not at all. That's the worst perception a business could have. I have some stats with me, and if I look at that, 43% of the cyber attacks have happened on businesses that deal in the SMB space. more than 60% of cyber attacks were experienced on SMBs. And if I talk about ransomware, 80%, 88% of the breaches impacted SMBs. So it's no longer an SME problem or an enterprise problem because there are plethora of tools being implemented, so much information going across the board, so many SaaS-based application. It is no longer, if you are under the perception that, oh, I'm too small to be affected or attacked by someone, no, that's not the case.
Okay, and I mean, are you able? I suspect, without naming names, but are you able to share a real world example or two of, or scenario where a lack of round the clock monitoring led to serious consequences for a business?
Sure. So I'll give you two examples. One relates to a cybersecurity incident that we helped investigate, and second was related to preventive maintenance and keeping the server uptime. In the first case, the user probably received a phishing email. They clicked on a link. The hacker made them enter the username password, also the MFA code, and they stole the session token. Once that was done, that session token was reused by the hacker to be doing activities that are illegitimate. Now, if the user had 24 cross 7 monitoring there, which they didn't, in that case, when they woke up the next day, the attacker had done what they were supposed to, right? So it was a loss of reputation, financial loss, everything to them. Had they had a 24 cross 7 knock or a SOC implemented or someone looking after those events, if you see a change in geolocation, someone working in the US and the next access they see is directly from the UK. If that's the case, that is something that has to be highlighted and necessary actions need to be taken, right? So that is one thing that we saw, which pretty much happened after hours. It didn't happen during the business hours. And I'm assuming even if it happened during the business hour, it would have been difficult for the end user to identify, when that happened. The second case was, this is what happened in the middle of the night. The customer had a firewall. The firewall went down. No one knew it. The next day, when people start logging in at 7 in the morning, they are not able to access any of the cloud apps. They can't access the local servers, not the CRM, the ERPs, nothing, no accounting system. Even users working from home, they couldn't connect to the VPN. In a traditional knock, a firewall is the first thing that gets monitored. And if something had happened, they take the right escalation path, inform someone, and before 7 a.m., someone would have gone onto the site and fixed that problem. So these are two issues where we saw that there was not just financial loss of productivity for the employees, but also a loss of reputation as a business.
Okay, so in terms of addressing the situation, I mean, are there any particular, or if there are, what would be the biggest barriers to prevent SMBs from implementing 24/7 IT defense, and how can they realistically overcome those barriers, whatever they might be?
Right. The first things, cost, having people working 24 cross 7. The second is the expertise, the skills that you need. In order to keep your data, your devices secure, you need to have plethora of tools implemented, and you need expertise in order to implement them and expertise to monitor them. A firewall issue is not something which is similar to an email issue. They are both separate issues. So you also require that level of expertise in order to be implementing a 24 cross 7.
Okay, and in the current landscape, I mean, automation's on the rise. We can't have an IT conversation without mentioning those two letters AI, which is clearly here and rapidly developing. And then managed security services obviously been around for a while, but just how has the combination of those, so automation, AI, managed security services, changed the game for the SMBs in terms of how they try to protect themselves outside of these normal business hours?
That's an awesome question, Philip. And that's what we are seeing lately, and we are also helping our customers do that. So if I give you an example in terms of automation, so I gave you a previous incident where a phishing email came in and the password got the session got hijacked, right? Now with automation, what I can do is as a first layer of defense, as soon as you see an event, as an example, that the last login was in the US and the next login after a few minutes is in the UK, which is impossible. So as a first layer of defense, we have done automation where if our tools identify such an event, password of the user would be reset, by default. So it might be a false positive, but as a precaution, if we see such an event, the system in itself, the tool in itself will go ahead and reset the password of the user. It will go ahead and terminate all the active sessions of the user. So that's like an basic example of automation that I gave you. So it is now becoming a combination of manpower and automation. So AI and automation is going to solve the entry level issues up to a certain extent for sure.
And maybe then just in finishing, thoughts as to, folks be watching this interview, SMBs, is there a one step that's sort of crucial for them to take to improve their out of hours security posture? What should they prioritize, or what is the order of things they should do to get themselves into a much better position when it comes to that security in sort of out of hours?
Sure. So I believe, Philip, the first and foremost thing they need to do is identify a service provider that can help you implement all the tools as per best practices. No matter how good the tool is, but if it's not implemented as per best practices, it's pretty much ineffective. And the second thing I would suggest is even if the tool is so powerful, even if it's implemented properly, it's sending alerts 24/7. And if you do not have someone that is looking at the alert at the right time, then the tool in itself is of no use. So as a first step, get a good service provider, get an expert in, implement all the tools, and then get in touch with a provider like Infrassist that has 24/7 coverage that can help you monitor those alerts, those events, and take proactive action.
Excellent. I mean, it's been great to chat, and thank you. I mean, I'm sure just the fact that SMBs think they're relatively safe because I say they're not the targets of a lot of this, the cyber events. But as you've explained, that's no longer the case if it ever was. So that's valuable, but also the advice you've given as to how they can address the situation. So really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you for your time.